City Council meeting of July 3rd, 2019 to order at 7 o'clock. Join me in pledging the flag.
Yeah, which is not there. Sorry, it's right in my office. You want to grab it? I think it's, I can see it. Okay, you can just
Feel a little irreverent to pledge
the camera.
the unflag on the 3rd of July. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Copeland,
Here.
Tom Baylor,
Here.
Ken Jones is absent, Jeff Guard is absent, Melina Meyer,
Here.
Ann Schaefer,
Here.
David Allison,
Here.
David Gleason.
Here.
That's a quorum.
Thank you.
Move to approve the regular agenda. Second.
All those in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, then agenda is approved as submitted. Are there any conflicts of interest or ex parte communications council would like to declare? Hearing none. Under communications by and petitions from visitors, we have a guest speaker, city lobbyist John Bitney, online to just give us a little recap on the capital budget vetoes. Mr. Bitney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. On Friday, the governor vetoed the operating budget. He vetoed about $400 million on top of the $200 million that the legislature had made in cuts to the operating budget. Just a quick top line numbers, it appears that the big hits from the vetoes would be the fact that he had cut by 50% the school bond debt reimbursement. And my estimate is that would be about $250,000 hit to the city from what it would otherwise be fully entitled to under the school bond debt reimbursement program. He also did not, he vetoed language that forward funded or capitalized the municipal revenue sharing account. And so that means that we would see a reduction of the state revenue sharing funds of about 50% for next year. Of course, it appears that what we had talked about earlier in terms of the cuts to the Marine Highway, that we were correct that the $44 million that the Senate cut, was done in agreement with the administration, and he did not take any more vetoes in that area. The legislature convenes on the special session on Monday of next week, and once they gavel in, they'll have 5 days to consider an override of that veto. The expectation is that they'll gavel in on Monday and then have some hearings and try to press for a vote on whether to override. It takes a 75% majority. But there's also now an issue of the location of the special session. The governor called this special session, and he called it to be located in Wasilla. But most of the legislatures, the majority in the House and Senate, plan to convene in Juneau. And some of the legislators and they're like such as the House minority and some of the Republicans in the Senate who are sort of standing with the governors on the vetoes plan to meet in Wasilla. So going forward, as far as the things to do, I think that there's going to be a lot of attention and focus over through next week on whether or not to get involved in the conversations about the override. There's going to be plenty of opportunity to do that. I don't know that there's time in the information at this point for a council position on an override veto, but I think that the important thing to remember is that the budget is not finished yet. The legislature still has yet to pass a capital budget that funds all the transportation programs for highways and construction and village safe water projects that they have to get done by mid-August. And we also have not seen a bill pass yet that funds a permanent fund dividend program. So there's still a budget bill yet to be passed, and the conversation and budget process is not going to end with an override vote that at this point, with all the drama around it, probably isn't likely to happen. So I think that it's good to stay engaged in the conversation next week, but that as far as trying to get our priorities and some of these things funded, it's best to keep our eye on the long ball and the fact that the budget process is still ongoing. With that, I just wanted to say happy 4th of July, and please send some rain over here on this side of the range here. It's pretty dry in South Central.
Yeah, I think we're going to get a report a little later. It's a little dry here too. Any questions, council? Okay, well, thanks for calling in, John. We appreciate it, and for keeping us updated. Just see how it plays out, and we'll watch for opportunities to testify, I guess. And as you mentioned, I know I've had several questions about the power cost equalization program, and that's a whole different process in the administrative budget. But yeah, there's still a lot that can happen. So, all right, well, thank you, and happy 4th.
I guess I did have one question. If we still
Councilman
have you
Meyer.
on there. About the location. If part of them are going to be in Wasilla and the other part are in Juneau, do you have any idea what's going to happen there?
Well, it's a question of whether or not they'll be compelled by, if you will, the state troopers to actually convene a session in one location. And you have the administration who wants to see the session in Wasilla, and the troopers work for the governor, but yet the majority of legislators are going to be meeting in Juneau. And to what extent those legislators meeting in Juneau can sort of compel attendance, if you will, almost subpoena powers to compel them to attend. And so I guess my point is that it's certainly an interesting thing to watch, but it's almost a distraction from the question of getting our budget done. And so it just sort of gets you to the conclusion that the override probably isn't going to happen.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions, council? Okay, well, thanks, John. If we get some extra water, we'll try and push some your way.
Sir. I appreciate
All right.
everyone's time.
Yeah, happy 4th. Are there any audience comments regarding agenda items?
Jim Cash, 824 Woodland Drive. I'd like to talk about a couple things. The first one is the City Manager Assessment Committee. I'd be glad to help with that. I've been on pretty much every one for the last, 13, 14 years or so. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. But I think it's important to have community input on finding a city manager, because we'd like to find one that'll last 10, 12, 15 years instead of our run an average of about 3.5. So it also takes the burden off council to try and find a quorum and meet, but it's also important that council look at every single applicant that comes in. The committee will find, will take whatever applicants come in and put a few suggestions to the top, but it's important that council make up their own mind, and all the interviews will be done by council, but I'd be glad to help with that. The second one is on the a federal lobbyist RFP. I don't necessarily think that that's a wise use of our city's funds. Most federal dollars, as you all know, doesn't come directly to Cordova. It all goes to the state level and gets trickled down from there, except if it's an extremely focused thing. If you wanted to try and find something that dealt with the Corps of Engineer funding or that type of grant funding for the harbor or something very specific, a general position on a federal lobbyist is not money well spent. They won't bring dollars back to Cordova. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Thanks for your willingness to serve on that committee. Are there other audience comments regarding agenda items? Okay, seeing none, we don't have chairpersons or representatives here. Well, we do.
Yes.
CCMC board.
Greg Meyer, the reluctant chairman of the CCMC board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thought he was speaking as a business owner.
Is that reluctant chairman?
Well, I got on 10 months ago. It's August, I think, and there was a vacant seat, and thought, well, the hospital seems to have financial problems all the time. There's an open seat. I'll check it out for 6 months. And so, and I wasn't going to run, but no one else was either. So I decided to run, and I think I missed an important meeting. I got chairmanship. Anyway, Kristen timed out, and they had to select someone, and weren't too many volunteers. Anyway, I'm here, and so I was putting together some notes and stuff, and I didn't know what version to give you guys. The warm and fuzzy. We have 10 hospital beds occupied. We got nurses up to scale. All our surveys come in excellent. Or the sky is falling. It's a mess. And when I first got on there, after a couple of months, I'm a financials guy looking at numbers. I was like, this is a mess. This is, what is this? This is, you can't even predict anything. You can't run a business this way. And so in that 10 months, we've had 3 CFOs, 2 CEOs, a new billing system, and PERS were, a lot of half-truths. We didn't get the full story, even when we asked outright. So, it's been pretty interesting 10 months, to say the least. Anyway, I'm committed to working at this, and Randall Lanews, CEO, CFO, we're going to try to work real hard and getting you guys some financials, one-page financial history of what's going on with the hospital, where the money's gone, where the city's money's gone, where our money's gone, and try to get a good picture. It's that in itself is a challenge. When they put the new billing system in last year, supposedly they went to back it up or retrieve the information, and everything was lost. So anyway, we're just pulling the stuff out of audited financials and doing the best we can. But anyway, I think we need to go forward. And when I first got on, I said, what a mess. But I think now it's not that big of a mess. One, it's only dollars that we can find a way around. But they've got a great staff there. They got real dedicated, caring people that work at that hospital, and they're just waiting for input. What does the community want? We've got a new physical therapist. We got a sleep apnea guy, a pediatric guy coming in. I think it can be a real nice community hospital if that's what we decide to do. But anyway, so the warm and fuzzy, since the last council meeting, we've got the CEO transition, and I think having a CFO as CEO is going to help with our financial situation, just clarifying everything and trying to get our billing cycle and our revenue cycle in order, so we can, we have way too many accounts receivables. If we can get a handle on that and our bad debt each year and our receivables, it's just ridiculous. And we need to get a handle on it, and that's one of our top priorities. We also need to get more insurance companies into the network. We have local groups here that can't go to the hospital because they're not in the network. So that's a priority. We got a company working with us to get that going. And I think we need to, somehow if we can get our own people, the council, the city workers, CEC, CTC, have that be their first choice when they go get health care. It's going to help immensely. So. And we're still looking for another doctor to replace Dr. Sanders. We need a medical director. She's staying on until we find one, so we're covered. We had a meeting last week with First Alaskans by invitation from NBE out at Orca, and I think most of you guys were there. It was a wonderful meeting, and we hope to keep those talks going, and hopefully it'll head us down one path or another, but I think I'm pretty optimistic about what's going to happen there. The state budget. With the Medicaid cuts and not increasing for inflation, we figure as of right now, after the governor's veto, it's going to cost us another $350,000 a year. the not so good news. And we've got an older facility. We have a suction pump that went out for 50 grand. We've got underground fuel tank that's been there for 30 some years. Gets pressure checked every year, but that could be something down the road. We're trying to get a handle on the depreciation schedule of assets just so we can figure out what might be failing and how we need to budget for some of that stuff. And I wasn't at the last meeting here, but I was on the boat and I did call in, so I heard a few comments. I think what council needs is, if I heard right, is just kind of some clear, a clear financial picture of where we've been, where we are now, and where we're headed. And Scott and Randall and I are going to work real hard at trying to get that information to you. And also, I think we just need to be more forthcoming on things such as PERS. And to tell you the truth, we got a lot of half-truths with that too. We were told that PERS were being paid. Well, not all the PERS were being paid, just some of them. So we heard that they were being paid, and dig a little deeper, and not all of them are being paid. So we are in the rears of about 1.3 to date. Anyway, our board priorities are to try to get current with PERS. Sooner the better. We're just incurring more costs, and we're making the employees nervous that the money's not put away. We're setting up a separate account at the bank just for their money, so they have some security there. But the sooner we can get it taken care of, the better. Right now, we're locked out of the PERS system from even paying, and we have been since. Let's see. I got on in August, so since like September of last year. We can't even make any of the payments on PERS. So we did send in a check, and they took it. So hopefully what we can do is come to mom and dad and get some money and go and take care of that, so we can get back into the system and keep paying. Anyway, and we should have some money to contribute. We're supposed to be getting $500,000 from Medicaid, Medicare here real soon, and as a board, we've kind of earmarked it for that payment, and that would mean the city would have to kick in about $800 to get us current. At the last meeting, I think Randall, our CFO, was here, and he kicked out a number of needing $2 million a year, and I think you have to take that from him, and that was actually a surprise to the board also. We've always been kicking around $1 million a year is what we need. He kicked out $2 million, and from his standpoint, I can see where he comes from. If we're gonna put some money away from depreciation, if we're gonna buy new equipment, if we're gonna pay back the city the 4.2 we owe the city, taking all that into consideration, yeah, we need a lot more than $1 million a year. $1 million a year just gets us, operating, and hopefully not coming back too much for more. But you have a year where you don't fill that swing bed, and you're out $1 million, and one little thing that you don't have any control of will put you in the red real fast. But I think overall, I think $1 million a year would take care of it, but it wouldn't do anything for depreciation or a little equipment here and there. But we'll work on those numbers in the next month or so and try to have something for you guys, something a little more concrete. I think one thing that we would like to see as a board is what we've got a few paths to go down. We have we can close the doors, which I don't think is the option, and I don't want any part of. We can keep going as is, try to bring up our revenue cycle so we can get more revenue in the door, and work on some costs, and maybe bring that number down from $1 million to know, 700,000, maybe less. I don't know. Um, we can do a tribal health, Indian health model with NVE or Anchorage or something. But you know, if we're going to stay on the path we are, or if you want, you know, if we're going to go alone, have control as a community, full control, I think we need to know how much you're willing to spend a year to keep the facility operational and under 100% control from the community, or come up with a number and figure out how to budget it each year, or you know, we'll go down the tribal health, which I think is a good option. It brings in a lot more instant revenue, but that may not be an option to us. You know, we're dependent on NVE to do that, and if they don't want to do it, then you know, we're going to have to do it alone, and the council's going to have to decide how much they want to sponsor and what, you know, what we want to see out of the hospital. And if we have to go alone, I think we can come up with a budget and come up with a plan to make it work. My calculations of since 2005, the city's put in about 3.6 million to the hospital, and we haven't come up with any new taxes or anything for that. So apparently we've had the money to support the hospital. With all the new cuts for the administration, that's probably not there, but anyway, just a little observation. Sorry, probably taking up more time than you wanted. Anyway, if you have any questions.
Councilman Allison?
Yeah, a few things, Greg. First of all, thank you for volunteering and putting in your time to the efforts over there. Might not be for you to answer, but at the last meeting when our manager was here and your manager was here, we neither are here today, but we had talked about this PERS thing, and my question at that point in time was what our liability is as CCMC and the city for not putting the money into PERS, as far as with the employees not being able to access their accounts to make investment decisions, yada, yada, yada. What is our liability there? And I guess the point I'm getting at is I think it's a liability, and I think we need to get it straightened out sooner than later, quit kicking the can down the road. Get at least to the point where our employees can manage their accounts, or you know, to the point where we can put money into it. And I don't know if you guys have discussed that or talked about that, or if
We
we've got
really
an answer
haven't
to that
talked about the
question.
legalities. We have talked about setting up a separate account. Talked about that months ago. It's finally being done, but yeah, I don't know about the legal side of it. And our feeling as a board is we need to pay it. We need to get up to speed and pay it 100%. And
Yeah, I agree, and
Yeah.
I would hope my
yeah.
fellow counselors can appreciate that, and somebody somewhere can get us on the track of getting that taken care
It's
of.
our number one priority to the degree that we have control over it. So we'll pitch in as much as we can and hope the city will do the same.
And then I guess I want to express appreciation to Sylvia and yourself and all of those others with First Alaskan that are set up that meeting. I think that was a good meeting, and I think I don't know if a lot concrete was accomplished, but certainly relationships were accomplished or forged.
It was a good start, and I think we just need to not drop the ball and run with it. We've got.
I guess from my personal, not necessarily as a council member, but just as somebody who has used medical services quite a bit in the past 10 years, you know, I don't really care who provides my care, as long as that care is good. And I think that all of us here are Cordovans, whether we're part of NVE or some other organization, the Coast Guard, or or any other organization in town. We're all Cordovans and we all have the best interest of Cordova in mind. So I think we need to continue down that path as judiciously and expeditiously as possible. So.
Yeah, and the board at the hospital, we agree 100% with you. And, all the staff have talked to the nurses and doctors, and they all love working with MDE. They couldn't say, enough good things about them. They have a great relationship. And so I don't see any reason not to pursue it, 100%.
Anyway, thank you.
This might be a question for Susan too, but maybe you could forward on that letter that's later on the packet to the CCMC board with the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium. They sent us a letter.
It's in the packet.
Yeah, but if we
Oh,
could
for
send it to CCMC too, because that might be another avenue that we can go down to
Sure.
work with it. Maybe as council, maybe we can extend the invitation to CCMC as well. I don't know, but maybe we can do that later on in the meeting.
Okay, Councilman Baylor, now it's your turn.
Oh, sorry.
Just because Dad's here doesn't mean you get to cut.
My train of thought.
Well, first of all, Greg, thanks for stepping up, and I echo a lot of Dave's comments. And I kind of like the idea of the tribal health situation, trying that out. And I think with your demeanor and your business background, you're just the person to head that up for us. I think the way you handled yourself in that meeting, you're calm, get your point across. I really appreciate your approach. And when you gave her that softball pitch about them being able to run a hospital, and she replied, "Well, you guys hired somebody," I thought that was perfect.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it. Yeah.
But the other thing I found good was we had the young and the old. We had Jack Hopkins in there saying, "Hey, let's just get this done." We had Raven, there, Melanie. And I think that younger generation needs to get involved because this is really going to impact you guys. You can't have your babies here. We're going to have to tax the heck out of you to keep this going. So we need those folks to get involved with it too. But no, I appreciate your efforts, and yeah, I'm all on board. Let's see if we can't make it happen.
That's good.
Councilman Schaefer, do you have any questions?
Yeah, you said you were able to make a payment for, on the arrears, send in a chunk of money recently. Do you know how far behind we still are before we can make payments like back in the system?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
You said you were able to send in recently a payment towards the arrears, like the back pay that we owe on PERS. And I was wondering how far behind we still are before we can get back in the system and be making more current payments.
As far as I know, we don't really know. They
Okay.
really aren't talking to us much, and they said that we need to get current before we can get back in. So I'm taking them
But
at
how
their.
much money do we have to pay before we can get current, is what I'm asking.
My estimate is about 1.3 million, and that's
Okay.
50,000 in late fees. So we may be able to negotiate those if we pay the balance off. But I've got us at 1,340,000 that we owe. That includes 52,000 in late fees. And we have a $535,000 check coming from Medicaid, Medicare. Should be here any day. The board is kind of earmarked for this payment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, council? Okay, thanks, Greg. I just want to echo council's appreciation for you serving as chair and bringing a business perspective. I know the financials are really important, and council's worked on getting clear financials here at the city. Councilman Allison.
Just one last thing real quick, Greg, you've got Radio Land out there. Are you still looking for 1 or 2 board members?
I'm probably looking for 2.
Looking for 2 board members for the CCMC
There's a
Authority
vacant
Board?
seat right now, and another member's indicated that they'd like to step down if we can find someone. They'll stay on until then.
So anybody out there in Radio Land or anybody know of anybody that might fit well in that position, if we could get some people over there, that would certainly help.
A side note, I was just thinking that, you know how those old dot matrix things are, you get
Mhm.
pronounced with financials and stuff? We're finally in this century's font. Crazy. Anyway, thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you. And again, appreciation for council and the CCMC Authority Board and Tribal Council all had quorums there, so a lot of commitment to that. And then First Alaskans coming over on their dime to help, so. Okay, other chairmans, boards, and commissions. Seeing none, and of course, we don't have student council in summer vacation, so approval of the consent calendar. And I think I'll go ahead and read the proclamations into the record or recognize them into the record. And then neither of those were able to attend, but does council want to remove any of the consent items? Okay, seeing not, roll call vote, please.
So on the consent calendar, Melina Meyer,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer,
Yes?
David Gleason,
Yes.
Ken Jones is absent. David Allison,
Yes.
Jeff Guard is absent. Tom Baylor.
Yes.
The consent calendar is approved.
Okay, thank you. Approval of minutes of June 5th and June 26th, regular and special meetings.
I move to approve the minutes from 6/5/19 regular council meeting and 6/26/19 special council meeting.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any changes, any deletions, corrections, or additions? Hearing none. Councilman Meyer.
I have just a comment on the first set of minutes, the one that we went in executive session. I just want to make a comment that maybe when we come out of executive session, we could just make sure that the statement that we say afterwards is reflective of what happened, because it really ties our hands behind our back of what we can say that happened there. So just little comment that maybe we could be a little, write a little more in there so that we can say a little more about it. That was just a comment on it.
Okay, which minutes were those?
They were the ones for the regular meeting.
I think she's referring to your statement.
Statement, well, the mayor and Allison just says that we discussed to direct the mayor to offer the manager a contract as discussed in executive session. Maybe we could just expand a little bit, just in general about any executive session, just wording that to a way that we feel comfortable that we can talk about afterwards. Does that make sense, or am I making it more confusing?
I'm not sure I understand.
I don't think she's asking to amend the minutes because this is
Yeah.
exactly what happened. She's just asking that in the future.
We have more detail on what was in executive session? Okay. All right, thank you. Any other discussion on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, minutes are approved as submitted. Reports of officers, and I'll ask Public Works Director Greenwood to speak at least to an item on the manager's report when we get to it. And for my part, I just resubmitted my mayor's report from the June meeting, and just had a couple of little items to add. When I went back to DC for other business, I had a chance to talk a little bit with Gilman and Associates, or HSB Law, Brad Gilman. They had, we had talked to them a little bit a couple of years ago. They're one of the firms that has done a lot of waterfront upgrade lobbying around the state. And then Caleb Freilich with Cassidy and Associates. So they're both interested in responding to an RFP if we want to include those. So I just want to mention that. And the current status on the manager's applications, we have 2 in hand, and 3 have expressed a lot of interest in their pending. We expect to get applications pretty soon. Is there any questions on my report? Okay. Clerk's report?
Were you gonna
I'm sorry, manager's report next. And Chief Hicks is acting manager right now. He's helping set up tonight for 4th of July. And so Sam wanted to share a couple items with us, please.
So I want to give you a little update on water because we're going to be sending out some stuff on the e-news and in the webpage. So as you can imagine, the snow is melting quickly, and we have moved towards trying to be proactive by turning on the pumps at the lake. We're supplementing Murchison, and if you guys want more detail, just let me know. So we're supplementing Murchison with EAC Lake water so that we can get more gallons per minute out of that side and take less out of Mills Reservoir so that we can keep as much water as possible in the Mills Reservoir, because that's like our golden child to get us through to the end. So we have, as of about 4 o'clock this afternoon, the 1.5 tank was almost full. They expect it to be full by 9 a.m. Those are our things, like the tank gets sucked down and we can't get the tanks back up fast enough when everyday work is going on and pulling water. So that's good. And they will slow Mills Reservoir down tomorrow, how much water's coming out of that. And we'll keep moving up EAC as Murchison drops. Right now, Murchison's doing well, but we can supplement to it and keep more water coming out. So I did send an email to the canneries today asking them to please be conscientious and conserve where possible. We will put something out in the e-news on Monday. We will be asking the public not to do, fundraisers for car washes, to just be very conscientious of the water, because the less water we got to pull out of the system, the more can go back into meals, and that's what we really need. We're still getting water out of Heaney, which is good, but we are going in the hole because we're taking more out than we're putting in. So that's where we're at with water. And hopefully it'll rain. I can't believe I'm saying that, but
Okay.
it could just rain at night.
All right. Thank you, Sam.
Just quick.
Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, just with the water, I know at one point we talked about possibility of running another line from the Yak Lake project. I think the issue was that we have plenty of water in the lake, because we only have one pipe coming in, Bill, correct?
No. So the problem is that we have one hole coming out of the tank. That's our bottleneck. We can pump more water, but we can only push so much out. We can't keep up when processing is going on and the tanks are low.
Out of the tank.
Out of the tank.
So can you literally put another hole in the tank? Is there another way to get more water delivered from the lake?
It's a possibility, but then we have to do piping,
Yeah.
right? So there's a lot of
I
logistics.
guess I'm
So
just thinking a long-term.
yeah. So we have some LT2 money left, and part of that, working with GV Jones right now, one of the tasks. So when we did that post LT2 contract, we had like 9 tasks.
Mhm.
We weren't really sure how far we would get down that list. And so we're done with all our major upgrades and work like that. So we have some money. So we're doing a network analysis. That's one idea. Another idea is to either improve what exists at Heaney to get, because that is a good year-round source, to get more water, or maybe directly put that into the system instead of going through the pipe all the way to the reservoir and then down. Of course, there's always Crater Lake. There's the idea of a new water source. There's options, but that is on the works right now with GV Jones to
Oh,
start
good.
working
We're
on
looking
that.
at some options.
Yeah, we need to start looking at, especially with the increase in fisheries, if we get some more winter or spring fisheries, because that's also a time when we are in a crunch. Everything's frozen. It's the opposite of now.
Right.
And then if the canneries are picking up, we've had to pump in the spring as well. So, any other questions?
Councilman Meyer.
Yeah, this just kind of popped in my head the other day driving out White Shed. I know that we mentioned about the signs, that area, that it's only about a 1.5 lane because the outside lane on the edge is kind of gone. Has anyone from the city contacted the state about maybe putting some signs up, about saying like caution, 1.5 lane ahead or anything like that, or just a reminder that we could maybe do that?
I could certainly send Robbie an email. I know that DOT Northern Division is that where the rock slide is that where you're referring
guys
to?
remember?
Yeah,
How
talking
that
about
spot?
3 Mile.
Mhm.
Yeah, is it
Yes.
3 Mile, the part where
Mhm.
it's?
You know where you go around the corner and the
Yeah.
guardrails?
At the rock slide, yeah.
Hanging on by a
I just know
thread.
that I went out there the other day and passing someone I remembered because I
Yeah.
had to slow
Um,
right down real quick.
Yeah, I can send an email to Robbie. They have a lot of rules about signs at DOT, but I do know that DOT Northern Region Planning Division is working on a hazard mitigation grant for that rock slide area
Right.
right now.
But if we
I
could get a
know.
sign up while summertime and a lot of people,
Well,
that would
we can
be
ask.
helpful. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's
Right.
a DOT thing, but I'll certainly send him an email in Friday.
Okay, other questions for Sam?
How much LT2 money is left? Sorry, okay.
Okay, all right, all
Hopefully enough to do a study. of that.
Okay, we'll take it.
right, thank you. City clerk's report.
I think I have one in here written. Don't really have too much to add. I can answer any questions you might have.
Questions, council? Okay, seeing none, we have correspondence is indicated in the packet. Councilman Allison.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, regarding the NTHC letter, the joint letter from Daryl Olson from NVE and Chairman of Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium. I think I certainly think that we should take advantage of that. Certainly, I would hope that, well, I would suggest that the manager, the mayor, and one council member, maybe the vice mayor, and hospital administrator and the chair of the hospital board, take them up on their offer of getting information and a tour and such. I would like to see us do that. I would also like to see us work with NVE and getting Search to come provide all of us with the information that they gathered. I think Daryl at least was open to hearing what they had suggested at our First Alaskans workshop we had the other day, and and I think it's important that we all, number one, get as much information as we can and share that with everybody that's involved in order to move this forward. I, as many others at the workshop, am getting frustrated and tired of hearing, of talking about doing something. I would like to see us actually move forward on doing something. So I don't know if we have to respond to these guys in some particular time or whatnot, but I would certainly like to take them up on their offer and go forward with some actual action.
So I was thinking about mentioning it during Greg's report, but there is a meeting, follow-up meeting next Wednesday, the 10th, and that's through the facilitator that NVE provided. Back
5:30 to 8 at
5:30 to
St.
8.
Joe's.
And that's going to be basically that group, mayor, hospital administrator, city manager, vice mayor, and tribal council chairman, health authority board chairman, and clinic director. And
Alan won't be there, so Ann and Melina have both been
Yeah, Ann and
invited, so
Melina.
it's a little more of us.
so if that's all right with council, I think that's exactly what we'll ask for. And First Alaskans too have offered to continue to facilitate at their cost. So try to bring those options to council. Is there other discussion on correspondence? Okay, hearing none. Next item is ordinance 1175 that we had the public hearing on. That's an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, declaring that tax foreclosed property commonly known as the Cordova Hotel located at 604 First Street, Cordova, Alaska, 99574, and legally described as lots 3 and 4, Block 6, original town site of Cordova, Alaska, records of the Cordova Recording District, 3rd Judicial District, State of Alaska, parcel number 02-173-503, formerly owned by Doreen Wickham and deeded to the city by clerk's deed, is not required for a public purpose. And secondly, authorizing and directing its sale and conveyance to the Cordova Telephone Cooperative Incorporated, doing business as Cordova Telecom Cooperative, for $52,000.
I move to approve ordinance 1175.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Councilman Baylor, would you like to speak to the
Nope,
motion?
I think we've heard everything.
Councilman Gleason?
Just, we got a good deal going here. We gotta take advantage of it.
Councilman Allison?
Yeah, I think we've done all of our legal responsibilities here, and I have full confidence that CTC will do a good job with this, making this a big improvement for our downtown district, so prove it.
Okay, further discussion, council? Hearing none, roll call vote.
On ordinance 1175. David Allison,
Yes.
Melina Meyer,
Yes.
Ken Jones, and Jeff Guard are absent. David Gleason,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Next is Resolution 07-19-29, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, authorizing creation of a city manager assessment committee to assist City Council in any or all aspects of the search and selection process for the next city manager of the City of Cordova, Alaska.
Yeah, move to approve authorization of resolution 071929, authorization of a city manager assessment committee.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion, Councilman Baylor?
No other than we've had these before, and I think it's a good way to go, get things started. So I don't have any comment on that, other than that.
Councilman Gleason?
Nope, I agree with Tom.
Councilman Allison?
Yeah, I think an assessment committee is good as well. However, and I'm supporting this. I say however, because we haven't included with this any direction or instruction or any job duties or anything like that. What is this committee going to do? And I'm sure that we have in the past laid out some groundwork somewhere, but the committee certainly needs a place to start, and I'll support creating the committee, but we need to, before we ask them to convene and do any work for us, we might want to tell them what we expect them to do.
And just on those lines, however council goes with that, if we do lay out some guidelines, having some provisions for a chairman is helpful too, just so there's one contact on that committee. Councilman Meyer?
This is just going to be maybe this should come up later when we're submitting, but if we were to have more than 7 members, would we have to amend this now, or could we go back to it later when we have names?
I wrote it as up
Okay
to
with that?
7, so if you feel like you want to put up to 10, and then you only wind up with 7 or 8, or that would work too. So if
I don't know how other people feel. I have 2 names that I want to submit later.
And motion.
All right, so I'm going to put a motion to change it up to 10 members.
Second.
So I have a motion to amend to contain up to 10 members. In a second, discussion on the amendment. Councilman Allison?
I guess I just have one question, probably for the clerk to answer. If we say up to 10, are we, as far as, does the quorum go from who's actually appointed to that committee? Or would a quorum now be 6? I don't want.
no, I think it'll
I don't want
be
to lock us into having,
right.
needing too many to
Right. If we keep it at 7 right now, if you only appoint 7, the quorum will be 4.
Okay,
If at a later date you go all the way to the 10, then the quorum
sure, I
for
want
any
to,
meetings after
yeah,
that would
okay.
be.
That was a clarification.
I'm good with 10.
Other discussion on the amendment? Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
Opposed? Okay, motion's amended to have up to 10 participants. Main motion? Further discussion?
Mayor Copeland.
Councilman Schaefer?
Yeah, I'm supportive of the creation of the committee, but I'm just unclear as to what, as Councilman Allison stated, what their role would be versus what our role would be. So clarifying that before we send them out would be important for me.
Okay,
So like what they would actually be doing versus then what we would do. I think needs some clarification.
I'll just make a comment. In the past, we've had up to 40, I'd say, applications. What the review committee does, has done in the past is review all those applications, first of all, for eligibility, the minimum requirements, and then typically they'll go through and make a recommendation of like the top 5 or 6, or it's kind of open-ended. If they have 8 really strong similar applications, then they might bring forward 8. If they feel like there's only 3 that really stand out, then they bring those to council, and it really helps council in kind of focusing on some of the better applications. And
Okay.
that's the main role. And then often when council gets down to the final selection process and brings people to Cordova or interviews those in Cordova that have applied, often the city will hold like open houses for the community to meet them. And a lot of times the committee members will go to that and ask questions and whatnot. And then they'll kind of, they have in the past circled back and kind of shared what they saw out of the on-site interviews. So those are some of the ones that I remember. But
Okay, yeah, thank you.
okay, so any further discussion on the main motion? We have, I think, 6 names.
Just
Yeah,
a comment.
Councilman Baylor, yeah.
Just a comment maybe for Ann too, is so that the committee will get these resumes and they're not out for a whole public consumption.
Can you speak into your microphone?
Can you hear me?
I think that mic's off.
Oh,
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I can hear you now.
My mic wasn't working. So forming the committee, then they'll get the applications and it's not like all of these go out for the whole community to review. So some of the information is kept within committee and within council, if I remember correctly. Dave, I think we've done this before, right? I don't think these applications aren't public, or are they?
well,
I'm not sure. I think council has, as former Mayor Cash pointed out, he's been through it several times too. The
Right.
council usually sees all the applications, and if all council members see all
and they should all be in a
information,
public
then-
packet.
or if a majority of council sees it, then it's essentially a public
Okay.
document.
Okay.
We're bound by some though, because they indicate that they don't want their former employers to know, or they don't want it to be public. So,
Yeah, there was something about that the last time.
and so there's a step there where we may ask them, or they may be willing if they're a finalist or something, but that's one of the things we have to guard.
Okay.
So just for clarification, the motion authorized the formation of the committee. Councilman Baylor's brought forth some, several names. I think others have names,
But that's a
would we-
later item.
and that's a later item on the agenda. Okay. Okay, great. So any further discussion on the main motion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Unfinished business, federal lobbyist RFP, page 64.
I had a question.
Councilman Clayson.
So that was for the harbor, right, Sam? That's what the idea was for that federal lobbyist to try to help us get a federal, or What was, I'm trying to remember why we were looking at that.
I think that's,
What's this
Councilman-
various projects?
yeah. And really, it's how the RFP is worded. A lot of times, if you hire a lobbyist to look at specific things and they know what your other goals are, they'll kind of cover all the bases while they're there. So, it can be narrower or broader as council chooses, so.
I guess what I mean is, if we get the harbor grant, do we still need a federal lobbyist?
The Harbor Build Grant is one opportunity. I know there's at least 4 or 5 federal opportunities out there right now. I mean, specific funding packages that have come out recently. So I agree with the public testimony earlier. The Congress has moved away from what they call earmarks. So the system's a little bit different, but when they do several funding packages, the WARDA bill, Army Corps had a package, there was 3 or 4 other sources. Those are competitive things that are out there, and it's just part of the process of shepherding it forward. So basically, I think it helped to give the city manager some guidance. A lot of times you can structure an RFP so that you say, specifically or importantly for this task, and it was water-related, waterfront development in general, and then they can put other things on there as options, like general lobbying services or whatever. And then you've got a way to kind of size it and shape it like you want, so.
Well, I'm new to this, so I'm just curious what something like that costs for that person.
I think,
Well, you're
see,
gonna put something on the table. We should probably try and.
yeah, that's right. We don't have a motion yet, so,
Oh.
sorry. Councilman Allison?
I move that we direct the manager to go out for an RFP for federal lobbying services.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, so, sorry, now we can go to discussion. Councilman Allison?
Yeah, I don't believe that the manager needs any approval from council to go out for an RFP. To accept an RFP, if it's over the certain amount, then certainly it has to come to council. To issue a contract, then have to come to council, but to get the information, we can all sit here and guess what it's gonna cost us to have a federal lobbyist, but until we get proposals in, we just don't know. So, I support going out for an RFP. The particular wording here, there needs some work on it. I think that they know the dates are wrong in there, and maybe a heading is wrong, and that's why I didn't make the motion to do this particular RFP. Just go out for an RFP for lobbying services and utilize, make the corrections as need to be, but I think we should go out and at least see what it's gonna cost us and what these people think they might be able to do for us. Doesn't hurt us to ask, and we can always say no later.
Councilman Baylor?
Yeah, I guess I'm not real in favor of it. I think one of the advantages of Alaska being so small population-wise is we have a pretty good relationship with our senators, representatives, and their staffs. And I think if anything's coming down the pike that would benefit us for the harbor, and I think that's our main focus is the harbor, I think we could then work on it. I think we've got, with the budget cuts from the state, and, we just heard some issues with the hospital, and the teachers are gonna be renegotiating their contract. I mean, we're gonna be short on money, and every time we spend $25, $50, or $100,000, it's gonna hurt. I understand trying to get money is important for that harbor, but maybe if it was more focused just for the harbor, I could support a little bit, but I think we could do this on our own. So, anyway, that's my thoughts.
I'm kind of curious to what Sam thinks about that. You think a federal lobbyist would help us out? You do the grants stuff, right?
I'll just say that I don't do the politics side of work. So I can't really answer that question with any confidence. You know, we'll know by December of 2019 for the build grant. We can keep reapplying if we don't get it. I just really don't, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not savvy on that side of it, so.
Actually, that was a political answer.
Yeah.
If this might help a little bit, Councilman Gleason, and I've kind of brought this to council and suggested it a couple of years ago. I talked with Robert Venables. He's in a Southeast Conference. Said basically, I saw when I was in Juneau at PN&D, many of the Southeast communities have had pretty major waterfront upgrades over the last 20, 30 years. He said just about every single one of them has had lobbyist representation, and a lot of them with one firm in particular. But it's competitive. They're competitive grants. If you don't have someone right there keeping it on the top of the decision maker's desk, it's an advantage. So that's all. There just happens to be some funding packages available now. I think I know CEC has had federal lobbyists in the past for $35,000. Susan put some a year. Susan had put some former information like on Cordova Center lobbying was kind of, it started with small pieces like $7,500 to $10,000, and they added on as they changed scope. So just for expectation management, I think you're probably looking at $30,000 to $70,000 range. But we're talking about tens of millions of dollars in infrastructure. So
Yeah, that we need and we don't have, so.
further discussion, Councilman Meyer, sir.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as Allison on this. I think that we can see what's out there, because I don't know how much it's going to cost me. I've seen in the past what we spent, and like what Clay said just recently. So I have an idea of maybe how much that we would spend. Maybe the scope needs to be brought down a little bit. When we've talked about federal lobbyists, it's been specifically for the harbor, waterfront type money. So I think that it needs to be a little more specific to what our needs are. It sounded pretty broad. So that would be my only comment on it, but I'd be interested to see what options are available for us.
Okay,
Did you say earlier that maybe Alan was calling in? I hadn't heard that. No.
I hadn't heard that.
Oh, okay.
no.
You must have been saying, maybe John, you said.
Yeah, I think just Bitney. So,
Okay.
Councilman Baylor.
Well, to Mr. Allison's point, if the manager doesn't need our approval to go out for an RFP, or does he want some consensus? Because I think I'm on board with Melina. If we narrow this down to just the harbor project, I wouldn't mind seeing what's going there. So then that brings up the question: are we just consensus, or do we need to make an amendment to this motion? Are we going to pass a motion? How are we going to handle this? Or what's your suggestion? Because I'll make an amended motion if that's the direction. Or are we just going to give the manager some direction?
I think that's the thing. I mean, the motion can give direction, but to Councilman Ellison's point. So,
Well, for
So we have a-
current, I'm sorry, I'll start out. I would prefer that it got narrowed down. The RFP, let's go see what, for me, I kind of like the idea of seeing what's out there for the harbor with that focus.
Mhm.
And that would be interesting. I don't
Okay.
like the various projects aspect of it.
okay.
Is that,
So, yeah, so I think the motion is to direct the manager to issue an RFP, and the meeting is capturing this, what council's looking for. So narrow scope, Councilman Meyer.
I would like to add waterfront, maybe just to the harbor, just like general waterfront, because if we're rebuilding our harbor, maybe there's some
Yeah.
money for other docks and stuff that kind of under the harbor scope, but waterfront, harbor waterfront.
Okay, Councilman Ellison.
I would just, I guess, add that as long as the RFP requests a breakdown by that, if they said just for harbor things, this is what it's going to cost you, but if you want us to do these other things, whatever else is in this scopes that they're looking at information on, information is never bad to have. It's never bad to get that information, as long as the part that we need is broken down, and they want to add other things to that. I mean, probably, if I was doing an RFP, I'd add things to it anyway and say, these are your options to, your add-ons. That's building a house, you have add-ons to it, so.
Okay. Susan?
I would say he might want your input on timing. Do you want something filled immediately and you'll have to amend the budget possibly if it's 30 to 70,000, or are you looking for putting it in next year's budget?
Councilman Allison?
I think if these funding sources are available now and they're issuing grants and whatnot to other folks now, I think we need to get in the queue sooner than later.
Yeah, these are this budget, so some are coming due as early as August, I think. The build grant is August, or? Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. I think they, yeah. Okay.
So was that a consensus kind of
I-
on the,
I think it's some
Immediately?
direction. And then, I mean.
Wait till
there's-
2020, everything's gonna be free.
Yeah. Okay, I think unless there's any other further council input.
Okay.
Okay, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Dave, what'd you do? Were you just quiet on that one?
No, I said
Oh, you said aye? Okay. I counted it as an aye regardless. You're not allowed to vote no. I mean, you're not allowed to not vote.
I voted, I said aye.
Okay.
I
understand.
promise.
Thank you.
So, yeah, just to recap, so it's on the waterfront harbor.
And he can listen, he can watch this even. I mean,
Yeah,
I'll do minutes, but
exactly.
he can even watch
Yeah.
this to get the gist.
And then there's just standard structure. I mean, you go out and you get references and a list of other projects they've done and so forth, so council will have some things to look at. New and miscellaneous business, so council action to fill seats on the city manager assessment committee. So we've got a list of 6 names. Generally, the process is mayor kind of brings these to council for their concurrence, but council's here. I certainly don't object to any of these names. I would fold them right in, so if council had other names to suggest, we could consider those.
So we need a motion on this then?
Yes, please.
So, move the council approve the appointments to the city manager assessment committee.
Second.
So we have 6 names, and maybe the procedure would be to amend it to include names that council has.
Sure.
If someone wants to make that motion.
I move to amend the list that's listed there to add Krista Hoover and Bert Adams. And I talked to both of them and they're both willing. I kind of picked Krista.
I'll second that amendment.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to amend to include those 2 names. I think the intent of council is to keep that amendment open to add any additional names. So is there any other additional names council would like to add to that amendment?
I don't know if I should speak to those names or not, but Krista Hoover works at the Copper River and Marking Association, so that'd be good, someone in there that knows fish in this community, knows this community well that way.
Mhm.
And then Bert Adams is the director down at NVE, so I thought that would be a different perspective to add to it.
Okay, thank you. Any further names to add, council?
There are no council members on right now, and that can be just fine, but I just wondered. Because you
Yep.
spoke about a chair, but
Well,
if you.
I guess I would ask, does the mayor have somebody? I kind of got out ahead of you on these names here.
No, I actually, looking through those names, I thought it was a really good cross-representation. You do have some former city staff that were department heads, current city staff are their department heads. You have private sector businesses represented. You have the Chamber of Commerce. Each and every one of these are property owners in Cordova. They pay taxes. It's a great list, and so.
Good.
And I think the same in the 2 that were just suggested. That was the one thing that I saw missing here was some direct native Village of Eac representation. I think with Bert Adams and Krista too, perhaps there's some there. So I feel like this covers bases pretty well. So any additional discussion on the amendment to add Krista Hoover and Bert Adams? Hearing none.
Question.
Oh,
So, if a council person wants to go to these meetings, they're kind of ex officio, am I correct?
yeah, they're
They
open,
can-
Fine.
open meetings.
I'm just
For you.
throwing it
That's
out
fine.
to everybody, you know. Okay.
Yeah.
I
And
think we can see on the schedule maybe who it is and anybody's available, maybe
Yeah.
and go to 'em.
I will just kind of solicit this group for someone to act as chair, because I think that helps keep it focused and
Yeah.
try to find someone that will be available to attend all the meetings.
Well, we've got an ex-mayor there, so he
Yeah.
knows the rules.
That's what I would suggest, that we just appoint the
Yeah.
chair at this point in time.
Yeah, I actually asked Mr. Cash if he would mind.
We're
and,
getting ahead of ourselves. We're back to the main motion without voting on the,
Yeah,
Well, I guess you can add the chair to that amendment if you want. Because then it'll be,
I'm seeing a nod from the,
Yeah, let's
Amanda.
Can they
move.
identify a chair from within the group?
oh,
I think they're suggesting former Mayor Jim Cash.
Yeah, I'd like to, on the amendment, do Jim Cash. 'Cause I know sometimes it can be hard to have them sit down and actually do a chair. This is a committee that probably is going to be looking at things before they meet to actually discuss it. So I'd like to appoint Jim Cash to the chair.
second that.
Okay, so if there's no objection, the amendment as it stands is to add Krista Hoover, Bert Adams as new committee members, and Jim Cash as the chairman.
very nice, very smooth.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the amendment carries. Any further discussion on the main motion? Councilman Allison?
just back to my point previously, was, we need to give them some direction on what they're doing. If they're just reviewing applications and give us top 10, then that's okay. But as a council member, I want to see every application. You know, I want to see their evaluation too, but one of our most important jobs as council members is to hire and manage and direct the city manager. So I think it's important that we at least look at all the applications. And I understand that that can be a lot of information sometimes, but if, as a council member, we can just cursory review it and then look deeper into the top 10 or whatever, just to make sure we're seeing everything that's out there. Anyway, if that's what we're asking the committee to do, then I would suggest that we give those directions as well. If we're asking them to do anything different, then we need to do that before they meet.
Okay, Councilman Baylor?
Yeah, and I guess my thought on that, the direction, I was thinking maybe that's something that this group needs to discuss, you know, what we'd like to see, like from my expectation, I'd like to, high on my priority list would be someone with Alaska experience, you know, maybe there's others got other ideas of what they would like to see. I got some thoughts on, you know, if we got to train somebody. So I was kind of thinking of putting that on the next agenda, if it makes sense, to have a little discussion, because they're not going to meet before that anyway.
Exactly.
And we, as a group, could say, all right, well, I would love to see this or this or this. Does that make sense to everybody?
I think that's a great suggestion. What I can do is just meet with Mayor Cash before the next meeting. As he mentioned, he's been on every assessment committee for the last 13, 14 years. I'll pick his brain for some of the past practice. We'll get you a copy of the actual assessment thing to show what it looks for and what the questions and I mean, what the application package looks like, but what the assessment form looks like. And we can bring it back to the next council meeting as
Even
informational.
you know, what the
There's the rating.
the
form.
advertisement we got out, even
Yeah.
that, what do we have listed so we can all kind of,
Okay. Does that sound okay, Councilman Allison?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, and then like you said, we have 2 and 3 pending right now, so they generally wait till they get a few applications, bring that to the next meeting, and then we won't have any. And we'll get council concurrence before we have the first
Yeah.
assessment meeting. Okay. Any further discussion on the main motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm sorry, Councilman Schaefer, I didn't hear your vote there. Give you a chance to unmute.
Sorry, I said aye, but I might not have been off mute yet.
Okay, great. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Pending agenda, calendar, and elected and appointed appointed officials lists.
I guess so the pending agenda, if you want to word it better than I was suggesting, but I thought as a group, we could sit down and go, okay, boy, this is what I'd like to see in our candidate and maybe give preference. I don't know. We could all discuss it. But
It needs to
Okay.
be put on the next agenda, not.
that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
pending
Yeah,
agenda.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so we'll have an informational item and then maybe just have a motion to concur, like council concurrence with hiring process.
Sure. And you and Cindy and I can get together.
Yeah,
too,
yeah,
'cause we can show
absolutely.
you all the old, how it
Yeah.
was done. 'cause
And I
we-
should mention, that's how we kind of got this far, as Cindy and Susan and I got together and kind of looked at past practice and just in the hiring process and advertising in general, and the assessment committee was one of the things that came up, so. Councilman Allison?
Yeah, I'd like to, maybe one of the things to have the assessment committee do, or council needs to do, before we get behind the 8 ball again, can we review our interview questions and those questions, we have a list of questions that we're gonna,
Oh,
do we have to ask everybody the same time? Let's not wait until the night before we're having an interview to come up with that list. Let's make sure that we review that and agree with that well in advance this time, and maybe that's something the assessment committee could look at.
good idea.
too, to-
Yeah, we can circulate that by email. So,
Do you think we should do this on a work session? I don't know if Alan had a plan for a work session for the 17th.
so that's my first question, is we have a regular meeting scheduled for 17th, I remember, so. And
I don't know. I mean, we'll probably be missing the seniors, but I don't know what everybody else's schedule is. I was hoping to just have it. I know planning is meeting this week. Are you going to have something to give me? You're meeting next week? No, okay.
Councilman Allison?
Yeah, I don't think it requires an entire workshop. I think it's the mayor talks to the vice mayor in advance about it and comes up with a suggestion for us. I don't think it's any great big discussion. There's already a list of questions
Yeah.
that we've asked in the past. I
Okay.
mean,
I agree.
that might change a little bit, but it's certainly not gonna change drastically and to require an hour discussion, I wouldn't think, but then again,
I think between now and then, the point is to get those in the assessment committee's hands, get and get them in council's hands, so you have a chance to look at them.
The question whether you can use the fax machine, we could take that one out, things like that.
So this item is going to be kind of twofold. It's going to be, everybody gets to weigh in on what they want to see as the next manager, or what they would
Criteria,
stress,
yeah.
the criteria, things they would stress
Mhm.
to the committee. And then you're also going to look at interview questions to make sure we're, okay.
So,
Can I change the subject?
yeah,
So I think we should stay on top of our joint meetings with NVE and CCMC and set, maybe it'll have to wait till gill netting's over so everybody can be there, but I really don't want to wait that long. I think while we're still remembering what we talked about already, would love to have meetings with everybody there again. I don't know how to arrange that, but that was a good meeting. I think we moved farther in that one meeting than we have since I've been here, which isn't very long, but still, we progressed. And I had a pretty good conversation with Jack Hopkins today, and his first comment to me was, we're gonna take care of that problem. So I don't know, we don't know what they're willing to do, or whether the building, we have no idea what options we have with NVE. But I do think that the tribal council is very interested in having good health care in Cordova. However that transpires. And it sounded to me at the meeting like it's possible to have Search and NVE together in that, with Search taking over the emergency room, because I don't think that,
You guys are going beyond pending agenda right now.
Yeah,
okay,
I think,
sorry.
so
But
I th- I
a
think-
meeting.
Yeah, so
Having a meeting.
I
You
think,
didn't write all that down? Come on.
I think with this meeting next Wednesday, I think there'll be a lot to report on the 17th. And what I'm hearing is council, and I mean, expectation is council wants options. I actually think the process moved along really well until there was a sudden change in leadership, both at CCMC and Native Village of Eac. And I think it was a skip, but I think the process is moving forward. And but then on the 17th, we can start looking at options like a follow-up joint meeting or something, but at least kind of be able to report to council how that meeting went and the outcomes. And how's that sound?
It sounds good, and I just
Yeah,
reiterate,
yeah.
the sooner the better,
Yep.
because we're
We're bleeding.
bleeding.
And on the 10th is the last meeting of that small group
Yeah,
with
that's
Agnew
right.
Beck. What is she going to, will there be a report?
I can ask her that in the meeting. I would expect that there's some kind of a encapsulation of the whole process and then next steps.
Yeah.
Councilman Allison.
And at that meeting, you guys are gonna discuss the letter from
Yeah,
from Derek,
I-
from
I-
DNV and
Exactly.
NCC,
exactly.
and, you know, make sure that they understand that we appreciate the letter and we want to take them up on their offer, and we're all in on that.
I will convey that.
Sent it to the board by then as well.
Yeah.
So they've seen
Thank
it,
you.
And
Yeah,
then you talk about it.
exactly. I just made a little
I'll
note
do
there,
it
and
tonight,
I'll pass that on, and that we appreciate that letter and we're acting on it. Council's acting on it. So, Melina.
I just wanted to note that I did get an email from Shelley that has a agenda. I guess she sent it this morning.
Yes,
The whole
I saw it.
agenda for the 10th. It's with notes from the last meeting. It's about 8 pages long. So I think we'll make sure that that message gets passed along, that we want to continue this and make sure that we have something scheduled and yeah, pass it along. We'll pass it along.
Hey, further pending agenda items? Okay, I think probably Ellen gets back after the 17th, so probably look at managers, follow up with him on the next meeting in August. And then
Not at the one on the 17th?
I couldn't remember his schedule.
Yeah, he's back to.
Just before that?
He gets back
14th,
just
isn't he?
before back. Okay, yeah, so maybe we can put it on there. We'll get together when we do the agenda. And then are we looking at 2 meetings a month at this point for the rest of summer, or?
I mean, I guess we can see
So
what
we can-
happens in August, but let's go with
We can play it by-
July for sure.
Yeah, okay, we can play it by ear and look.
Even
at
though
the
it's my
17th.
50th birthday on the 17th, I'll be here.
Ooh, birthcake.
Ooh.
Which birthday was that?
50.
Woo!
Could you
I'll
repeat
bring
that?
stuff.
Still not as old as me.
And you're wearing black this meeting, so.
And I went 4 for 5 playing softball last night. so-
Right on.
Okay, anything else for
Okay.
pending, anything else for pending agenda? Okay. Audience participation.
We got no one.
Seeing none, council comments, I'll start online. Councilman Schaefer.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming and participating tonight. Happy 4th of July.
Thank you. Councilman Baylor?
I'm off guard. Not to slight anybody, but I know the mayor, you're busier than busy.
Mhm.
And I look at this hospital thing and I think Greg Meyer is the guy to push this through for us. I think he's really taken an interest in the hospital. He's over there, and I think if we gave him direction, I kind of got that feeling tonight. If we gave him direction, like we'd really like to try this tribal health system and let him run with it. And, you know, if Melina, you want to be on board, or if others, but I think if he took the lead, I think, and he's got that good relationship with, what was her name? Valerie Davison. I
Mhm.
mean, he kind of knows the players. He's well-spoken. I would suggest for my input that we let him head it up and set up the meetings and let's make this happen. Maybe he'll be the one to push it through for us.
Okay.
Anyway, and I really appreciate everybody showing up and thanks.
Okay, on that note too, thank you too for getting the names for that committee. It saved a lot of footwork and like I said, it's a good list, so thank you.
Wow, and it's like when you ask people and go, yeah, I do it, you don't expect that.
Councilman Gleason.
Well, I would thank Greg for doing the job he's doing. That's a tough job, but he's not here, but you can let him know, right?
I'll pass it along.
Okay,
And he'll be in the minutes.
so, and happy 4th of July. I'm once again gonna be on my bow picker.
All right, thank you. Councilman Allison.
Yeah, like it was said at that meeting with First Alaskans, one of our greatest assets in Cordova is the people. And there's good people involved with all of it, so I'm confident in the future that we've got. Appreciate the staff time and everybody's time here at the table. It's all valuable, so appreciate it. Happy Independence Day.
Councilman Meyer.
Yeah, just echo all the comments before, and big thank you to First Alaskans Institute for coming down and doing that dialogue. I think it was really good chance for all of us to be in a good room with people who do that, who sit down and have dialogues a lot of time. And report from them is they loved Cordova, and they said everybody was just so nice. Everyone there, they went, they got hello, how are you, and lots of posts on Facebook from their good weather trip down here. So it's nice to see. And thanks everyone for coming.
Great, thank you. I'll just mention on behalf of Councilman Jones and remind people that we do have a very, very dry spell. We don't have a ban in place on fireworks, but please exercise restraint and caution if you do choose to use fireworks. And there's some fires raging in Anchorage, and we've had a couple of tragic boat fires over the last couple of days, so.
Even just campfires and cigarette butts.
Yes, any kind of fire, just be careful. We are surrounded by forests, so. With that, we do have an executive session item.
We do.
And so,
Yeah, she's calling.
She's calling
Do
in.
you want to do the motion and then recess?
okay, so yeah, we can make a motion to go into executive session and then recess.
Gonna start needing lights here pretty quick.
Uh-oh.
So is it moved up as it matters of immediate knowledge which would clearly have a adverse effect and impact the finances of the government?
Yes,
Executive session?
Specifically, recommendation
Matter-
from the city attorney regarding Beecher versus City of Cordova.
Yep.
Second.
motion and second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll recess to go into executive session.